What's up, everyone? It's Matt Mrozik, and I figured to do a quick video of my latest piece that I did for a client. This is a quarter scale Graven Labs Beast kit that I converted to Age of Apocalypse Beast. So this was for a client that I did some work. I've done work for in the past. I did the Age of Apocalypse for him, the Age of Apocalypse Colossus, and Age of Apocalypse Shadowcat for him last year, and he wanted this to add to that collection. So like I said, this is the Graven Labs Beast, which I did the prototype, oh gosh, like 3 years ago, I think it was. And I received this kit from a client last year, and I sold it. And he asked if I can convert it to Age of Apocalypse Beast, and I should, sure, why not? So this is a pretty big undertaking for me, because I'm not a sculptor. I don't do a whole lot of conversions and stuff, but this one was a fun challenge. It took me 2 weeks. I've got about 100 hours into it, and I'll kind of go over what I did and why it took so long. So this is a great piece. It got a lot of great reviews when it first came out. I'm gonna turn the light on. I got a light in the hand, and yeah, it's just a great sculpt. I think Avi Ye sculpted this one, if I'm correct, and I can't remember. It's been a while. And so this is the second one I've painted. The first one being the prototype I did. And you can see I've got the switch outs here on the side. So he's got two hand switch outs, or just fists. And he's got a finger here that can switch out here if you don't want to have him holding this piece there. But in my opinion, this is the way to display him, with him ripping off the finger. This is taken out and that's in there. So I'm just going to put these to the side because this is my favorite way to display him. I just think it looks really cool. Yeah, so this was, again, Graven Labs kit. It came unpainted, quote unquote unpainted, meaning that the factory had painted it and then primed on top of it and called it an unpainted kit. And I don't know why factories do that, but they do. It's really annoying because they're just adding layers of paint to it and hiding details and stuff. So I'll point out a few differences between this and the prototype I did as far as like the breakdown of parts and everything. But it turned out really awesome. I've had a few comments about his color, because depending on which reference photos you look at in the comics, from what I can see, he's either gray, black, or kind of blackish blue. And my client sent me a couple of references, and one was of a painted bust. And I really like that color palette, so I went with this kind of blackish dark blue. So it kind of depends on what you look at, which reference you look at. So I thought this looked really good. So it's, and initially I had him a little bit lighter, and my client's like, it needs to be darker, so I darkened him down, which I think looks great. But I'll kind of go over the steps I did. So the first thing I did on this piece was I had to strip the paint off of Beast. I had to get him down to bare resin, which took quite a while. And I just used lacquer thinner. You can use acetone, but I'm kind of leery of acetone because it's very aggressive and it can melt the resin. So I just used lacquer and a scrub brush. It took several rounds. Got it down to bare primer so I could get to my next step, which was to take the pants, or the legs, which were covered in fur, and convert it to metal pants. So this took a very long time. I sanded all the fur down as much as I could by hand, and then I went with the Aves epoxy and filled in all the other areas that I couldn't get with sanding. So sanding, filling, sanding, filling, sanding, filling. Several rounds, primed it, sanded it. Just lots of work. And then scribing the lines to represent kind of panels in the pants. So the scribing took a full day, like 10 hours just to scribe the lines. The sanding took 2 full days. So it was 3 days just to convert the fur to pants. And I think it looks pretty good. There are a few little imperfections here or there, but again, my work is never 100% perfect, but overall I think it looks really good. My client loves it. And so I just kind of used some references to, I made some knee pads on there, and I carved a couple of shapes in the crotch area and on the kind of on the butt area, just to kind of break up the lines a little bit. But overall, I think it looks really good. And the next thing to do to convert him to Age of Apocalypse Beast was to add braids. So I take this head off. These are magnetized. You can see that initially I was going to make these removable, but then I decided that I was just going to sculpt them onto the body, because all the references, depending on, again, what you look at, they're kind of against his body. And since he's kind of lunging forward, I made this one kind of sweep back a little bit with the little tip kind of flaring up, and this went over her shoulder. So that was my thought process behind the braids. And I just used some wire first to kind of get the shape and the placement. Then I glued the wire down to the body, and then I used Aves to cover up the wire and just sculpted in the fur detail and stuff. And the last step was to take 2 little ribbons of Aves and create these little tassels at the end of the braids. And for someone who's never really sculpted anything, I think they look pretty good. So I'm really happy with that. So that covered the conversion part. And then while Aves was drying and stuff, I worked on the base. And this base I beat up quite a bit more than I did on the prototype. And it's not quite as shiny. It's got a little sheen to it, but I wanted to kind of beat it up really, really nice. Lots of weathering. And the purple is actually interesting. So I used a rattle can for the base coat. I found a really nice, I think it's Krylon. I think it's Krylon. It's called Plum. But it's a great purple base coat because I'm running low on a lot of my metallic paints and stuff, and they're hard to get right now. So I didn't want to start with gray or black and try to hide that. So I found this great rattle can of Plum and put that down as a purple base coat. And then I have a custom mix metallic purple that I used on the other Apocalypse pieces, or the other Beast and other stuff like that I had left over. And I layered that on. And then I went in and did some shading here. You can see it here with I have a custom dark clear purple that I use for shading on purple. I'm running low on that. So, you know, I've been using them for a couple of years, and I mix up a bunch and starting to run low. So I did the shading, and then for the weathering, after I did the purple, I went and the first time I did this piece, I masked off all these metallics and sprayed them. That took forever. So this time I actually hand painted the metallics, which still took a long time, but probably not quite as long as if I went in and masked all this off and sprayed it. Because you have all the different joints. So if I take this finger off, you got all the joints in here and between the knuckles and everything. So it's just time consuming, hand painting or masking. So we did that like in a slightly darker custom mixed metallic. And then I did some dry brushing to bring out the details with like a silver. You can kind of see it here. And then once I was done with that, I did an oil wash on everything to kind of dull it down, get on all the nooks and crannies to bring out the details. And then once I was happy with that, I did some sponging around the knuckles and stuff to show some paint wear and tear, and just some chipping and things, and some pastel work to weather up the hand a lot. And then when I did the base, it's looking pretty monotone right now, but there are some subtle different shades of yellow and browns in the base. Rocks are sometimes difficult, so they don't look so boring, but you know, you really want the hand of the beast to stand out. So the rocks are all hand painted, and then I used pastels and some airbrushing to kind of get some weathering up on the hand so it anchors it. I hand painted all these little details in here with some silver and did a black wash on it to bring out the details and just darken that area down just to kind of break it up a little bit. This piece actually came painted from the factory. When they first shipped these to clients, a lot of these were broken in shipping, so they had to reship them out. So I did go in and just kind of touch up the paint a little bit so it matched my paint a little bit more, but this actually came painted from the factory. I just kind of dulled it down and added some more weathering to it so it kind of matched what I did. Again, hand painting back here, all these metallic details, dry brushing, oil washes, and pastels to bring out the details. Show it all beat up. And then, yeah, so that's it for the base. The base took a good, I think the base was 3 days of solid work. And I worked nonstop on this for about 2 weeks. I think I only took 1 day off, and every day was 10. I put in a couple of days that were 12 or 14 hours on this guy. This is a lot of work. But he looks fantastic. And I love the blue. I love the darkness. I love everything about it. I love the color of the pants. My client loves it. And the portraits are really, really cool on this. Great sculpt on the portraits. So let's come in here and look at the portraits. This is, in my opinion, the better of the two. I'm going to bring down my exposure a little bit to show a little more closer what it actually is in person. So right about there actually is probably more accurate. And I'll post I took photos of him last night, so I'll put those at the end of this video, and you'll see it in the slideshow. Portraits take me a long time, especially teeth, because I want to show like the the texture in the teeth and the shading and stuff. So that's all done with hand painting acrylics. I didn't use any oils this time. But yeah, done with acrylics, and it's just, you know, a matter of the shading and stuff. A real nice dark red tongue, and the gums are almost like a really dark, deep purple. Almost black, but they got a little bit of reddish and purple in there, so it fits well with the skin around them. I didn't want bright, you know, pink gums, since this is Dark Beast. And then the eyes are just yellow, with some heavy shading around them. But yeah, so the great thing about what I did on this piece, as far as like the shading on the face, when I had my base coat was like a midnight blue, which is like it's almost like a black, but it's got a blue undertone to it. I dry brushed the face with the light blue, so it brought out all the details in the sculpt, and then I just started layering on. I have a custom mix of a deep, dark, clear blue that I've made long time ago, and I just slowly built up the shadows with an airbrush around the face and the crevices and stuff. So it's a combination of dry brushing and then just layering on that darker, clear blue to bring the tones down, and just went real heavy here in the neckline. You know, the crevice to bring out the muscles. It's hard to see some of the sculpt underneath all the fur, especially in the arms. There are some muscle definition that's really hard to see, but I brought it out with the shading, so hopefully it's more noticeable. Gave him black fingernails and just a nice airbrushing and shading around the cuticles there to bring out that detail. So let's bring out the other head, which is, he's kind of grinning. And that goes on just like that. Again, this is a nice portrait, but I think that one's better, personally. But this one's got kind of a cool personality to it, too. The teeth took so I finished this guy up on Saturday. On Saturday morning when I woke up, all I had to do were the eyes and the mouths. That took me half a day, 4 or 5 hours just to do that, with hand painting and detailing and stuff, going back and forth, shading and highlighting and dry brushing and stuff to get the details out. But I think in the end they look really good. Gave them some dirty teeth with some nice highlighting. So yeah, really cool. Really happy with that. So going back to how this was broken down as a kit compared to what the prototype was. So when I got the prototype, the body, the hand was the same as the prototype. So this finger is molded into the base. This finger does not come out. This finger comes out, this finger comes out, and this comes out. So you're going to switch out this finger, and this finger comes out. The biggest difference was on the beast themselves. So when I got the prototype, however many years ago that was, they had the waist, the 2 legs, the 2 arms, and the torso. So I had to get everything lined up on the prototype. And also on this hand, on the prototype, the hand and the finger for the Sentinel piece was separate too. So when this came to me, this is now one piece, which is actually, I was kind of, at first I was like, oh man, it's one piece, but it's actually easy to do because the prototype was a really tight fit and I kept breaking fingernails off when I tried to go put it on. So that was a smart idea to make that one piece. Being a painter, painting him as one piece other than the hands and the head was quite difficult because it's really hard to get paint in certain areas. For instance, up on this upper thigh here, it's real hard to get airbrush paint in there. Up underneath this area, way back here, it's really hard to get paint in there. And what happens is you try to get paint there and you get dry spray, so it gets a really rough texture. So it's really challenging to get paint there, like on the top of the foot here. It's really hard to get paint on because it's really hard to get an airbrush at the right angle to get paint on it. And you have all this fur texture, so it's really hard to make sure to get paint and everything. So that was really challenging as far as the painting goes. But the nice thing is that the feet and everything line up. Now, one comment about that. So right here on the prototype, when I got everything lined up, these toes fit perfectly into the little cutouts of the finger. Here, not so much. What the factory did is they got them together as one piece, and they kind of faked it by using some putty here. This is the factory did this, not me. They puttied on top of this finger, and they put a little putty up here so everything would fit together. It doesn't look bad. After painting, it doesn't look bad. But at first, like, oh man, they didn't really line it up very well. But so when I had the prototype, what I did is I got the feet in, fitting just right. And what I did is, when I did the prototype, and I may have videos on this, I can't remember. I had to do some puttying and resculpting on the waistline to get everything lined up and looking correct. So they did the opposite. They put Beast together and then they kind of fitted them to the base, but not the end of the world, but it looks good. So anyway, yeah, great piece. You can see the light. I'm not sure the light's going to flicker in the video. It doesn't flicker in real life. It's a LED, so it's probably because of the frame rate. But yeah, overall, this looks really good. My client's super excited about it. Was not a cheap overall, not a cheap piece by the time he bought the kit and paid for the paint and conversion, but it's a one of a kind. No one else has this piece. And it's a great sculpt. I mean, it's one of the better beasts out there in my opinion. I love it. Great sculpt, great pose. Base is huge, you know, takes up a lot of space, but tells a cool story. Tearing up Sentinel's hand. And overall, I think it looks really, really good. So stay tuned at the end of the video for a slideshow. And thanks for watching. We'll catch you guys next time. Bye.